Are you an established small business owner or aspiring entrepreneur? Would you like professional advice to help your business grow and succeed? Well, look no further. The Virgin Islands Small Business Development Center is the territory's #1 resource to move your business forward. Enjoy no-cost advising, low-cost training, and technical assistance from experts in both the public and private sectors. The VISBDC is nationally accredited and sustained by the University of the Virgin Islands and the U.S. Small Business Administration. Visit us at our locations on St. Thomas, St. John, or St. Croix, and follow us on social media at VISBDC. For easy access to all our training and networking events, be sure to join our newsletter and download the VISBDC app. The Virgin Islands Small Business Development Center, here to help your business start, grow, and succeed.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the VISBDC's hosting of Disaster Preparation and Mitigation for your business. The time to plan is now. This training is going to be held in collaboration with the SBA Senior Area Manager, Mr. Wayne Huddleston. And this training will cover the elements of a disaster plan and resources available to help you create a plan unique to your business, and as well as disaster assistance loan programs from SBA available to help you recover quickly. This webinar is going to include a question and answer segment where Mr. Huddleston will be able to assist you based on your inquiries. Here's a friendly reminder to put your questions in the chat, and they will be addressed either by Mr. Huddleston directly in the chat or later during the question and answer segment. A copy of this presentation is available upon email request to training@visbdc.org. We encourage you to take a few minutes after this training to let us know how we are doing by filling out the survey. So without further ado, Wayne, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you very much, Sharika, and thank you to the SBDC for hosting. Good morning, everyone. This is going to be a fairly short presentation but on a very important topic, and that is disaster assistance. As Sharika said, I'm going to cover some resources that are available to you to plan for this upcoming year, especially the hurricane season, to make sure that your business and home as ready as it can be for a disaster upcoming. Let's see. So in preparation for this, I clipped just a few stories that are just from really the past week. The top two, I think the first one up there was from the St. Thomas source, then the VI Consortium. There was another one, I think, on USA Today, and another one up, I think, for the Hurricane Center. All of them are predicting that it could be a very active hurricane season in 2024. I didn't want to post this to alarm people because, they said a very similar thing last year. We ended up being okay here in the Virgin Islands. But again, you never know what the season is going to look like. And if people and experts are predicting that it could be very active for our area, it's prudent for you to make sure you do everything you can to just make sure you're prepared and you've taken advantage of the resources that are available so you can be as prepared as you can be for the upcoming hurricane season, because there are a lot of warnings coming out. This is very early, and already very early, they're saying that this could be a very active hurricane season for us down here. So we're going to talk about two primary areas, and that is preparation and resources available if something hits and we go into a recovery mode, the resources that are available at that time and how you can take advantage of them quickly during that time. So the very first thing I want to talk about is the preparation phase and the elements of a preparation or preparedness plan. These are the 6 elements. These are put out by FEMA and some other organizations that specialize in disaster response and preparedness. First is to establish a communications plan with your family, with your coworkers, with whoever it is that's most important. Make sure you have a plan to reach them and they can reach you during that time or shortly after the disaster. You want to make sure you protect your documents, and that can be done in multiple different ways, whether it's on the cloud, whether it's in a safe, whether it's copying it and keeping it in a separate location, or it's in a sealed box that doesn't get wet. You just want to make sure you find a way to prepare your documents. The last thing you want is to have them all in important things in a file cabinet that you can't get to, or on a computer that got destroyed and it's not anywhere else. You want to think through that part. Review your insurance coverage. Now is the time to do that, not after a disaster hits. You want to make sure you have the proper coverage now, or at least the best coverage that you can get. Create a solid supply chain that is more business focused. You want to make sure that if you are relying on certain supply chains, whether things being shipped down to the territory or coming from a certain area on the territory, you want to make sure that if normal channels get disrupted, how you're going to address that. If you have a physical location, you may want to plan for an alternate location if you need to. And then you want to practice and exercise this plan either yourself or with your staff. And so at the very minimum, if you have a staff, now is the time to sit down at some point and have a short meeting to say, okay, let's talk about what's going to happen if a hurricane is coming through, or if some other disaster strikes. Of course, there are other types of disaster other than hurricanes, just like COVID hit us all by surprise 4 years ago. But you just want to make sure you plan and have that discussion through with your staff. Statistics have borne out that 25% of businesses do not open again after a disaster. And more than likely, those are businesses that did not plan ahead and mitigate against the problems that can happen. So I mentioned earlier, you want to review your insurance coverage. You want to make sure you have enough insurance that is going to get you back in operation and get you through. You want to make sure you review your policy to make sure you understand what is covered and what is not covered. Sometimes a structure may be covered, but the interior contents may not be covered. So you may have to have a separate rider or policy for that. Or some may have different policies depending on wind and flooding damage. You want to consider business interruption insurance. This is insurance beyond just the physical materials that need to get repaired, but business interruption insurance, which can pay you money if you had to close down for a certain period of time. It can also compensate you, and it's primarily there to compensate you as a loss of income. So if you have the type of business that, let's say, for instance, there was a hurricane and it was heavily tourism dependent and it's seasonal, and then all of a sudden people aren't going to be coming in and it impacted your tourist season, you can get funds to help recover or fulfill the loss of income that you otherwise would have. Flood insurance is a big one. Just 1 inch of water can cause as much as $25,000 worth of damage to a typical home. And most insurance policies do not cover flood damage. So you want to make sure you review that very well, especially if you're in an area that is prone to flooding. You can get a lot more information on that on floodsmart.gov. That is put out by cooperation through FEMA and the National Flood Insurance Program. You can get a lot of good information on that site on flood insurance and coverage for that. So facilities, operations, and planning. This really goes into your plan that you want to develop for your disaster. You want to develop a plan to stay in operation. If your business space, if you have a physical space that's not usable or accessible, this goes to or speaks to the point that was made earlier of finding an alternate location. If you require a location for your business, a physical location to do business, you want to make sure you find another place that's an alternate backup for you, or figure out what you're going to do. You want to assess the internal and external functions of your company to determine what you need to stay open. If you need extra supplies, you want to identify what those are now, whether that's a generator, whether it's a another truck or whatever you need, food, water, whatever you need to stay open and stay operating. You want to make sure you identify those resources now, so that you can be ready to go if that's needed. There are a lot of great resources out there for you that are not necessarily SBA resources. Ready.gov, we provide business-related resources to this site, but this is the government's primary site to help people prepare and be ready for disaster. There are disaster plan templates on that site. There's a lot of really good information to help you plan through and think through your preparation plans for a disaster. There's also the Institute for Business and Home Safety that has a lot of resources there to help. I highly encourage you now, even if you have a plan, this is the time to revisit, but also revisit all those resources, look at the plan you have, or if you don't have a plan, certainly start relying on these resources to develop that plan. All right, the next part I'm going to talk about is the recovery. So if you've done a lot of these things to prepare for a disaster, that will help you be ahead of the game and be a lot more prepared to continue your business or recover your home after a disaster. But as we know, a lot of times you can plan extensively and very thoroughly, and once a disaster hits, everything changes, and you never can anticipate fully what it's going to be like. So you want to make sure that you have the information needed to recover quickly as possible. I'm primarily going to focus on SBA's role in disaster recovery. So in a normal, like right now, there's not a declared disaster. SBA is involved in helping small businesses through guaranteed loans, through technical support, through government contracting, through all these things. Our role significantly changes once an officially declared disaster has happened. Instead of providing guarantee for loans, we then suddenly become a direct lender to not only businesses, but also nonprofits, also individuals for their home. Our primary role is to make sure that people can get the help necessary to continue on with their lives, continue operating their business, continue employing their employees. Oftentimes the insurance process is very slow, so that's why we step in during that time. The loans we offer are to all sorts, like I said, all sorts of entities that normally would not be eligible for SBA assistance. It could be renters, homeowners, nonprofits, all sorts of things, and businesses of all sorts of sizes. Our disaster assistance programs are activated when there is a federal disaster declaration by FEMA, SBA, or the USDA. So we cannot activate our programs if it's just a local government declaring a disaster. There has to be a federally declared disaster. Those happen pretty quickly and pretty commonly too. So when that happens, once that declaration happens, then we can provide our assistance to everyone in the territory. You can always go to disaster@sba.gov, disasterloan@sba.gov, and ask if there's one for your county. There's also a place on our site where you can get more information to see if there's a current disaster declaration. If something hits our territory, of course, we will be pushing out that word as much as possible, not only online, but through every media resource we can, through radio, through in-person. Any way we can push out the information that there is a declared disaster and how to take advantage of those resources, we're going to be pushing that out at the time. Our primary programs are low-interest disaster loans for SBA. And as I mentioned, it's only available when there's a presidential declaration or an SBA administrative disaster declaration, which is only announced by SBA. But typically on these, especially on natural disasters, we have to wait for a presidential national declaration. You can always get more information on that at sba.gov/disaster. You can also call our hotline, 800-659-2955. You can reach a live person, tell them where you are, ask them if that declaration's happened, ask them how to apply. That number is staffed, I believe, 12 hours a day from 8 a.m. Well, next weekend, it'll be 8 a.m. our time to 8 p.m. our time. at that number. And you can also go to FEMA as well. Our agency works very closely with FEMA during a disaster. We're partners in responding to that. So our loan requirements are change significantly from a regular SBA or SBA business loan to a disaster loan. However, there still are some minimum eligibility criteria that must be met for someone to receive a loan. Of course, the damaged property must be in a declared county or area. That is very important. And I'll give you an example of how not having a property in a declared area can cause a problem. So last time we had major hurricanes, both Irma and Maria came through. During Hurricane Irma, we had many boats were damaged and sunk. We had an instance where a charter boat operator wanted to protect his boat, and the area that it was moored in St. Thomas was not very well protected at all. There was a place just a short sail away on St. Thomas. I'm sorry, from St. Thomas in the BVI's, where there was a protected cove. So he put his boat in that protected cove in the hopes that it would be saved from the hurricane damage. Unfortunately, it was not. It was sunk, just like many other boats were sunk during that time. So he applied for a disaster loan. This is a U.S. business. The owners were U.S. citizens. The boat was registered here in the U.S. The business was licensed in the territory. Unfortunately, that boat sunk in foreign waters. And no matter how we tried to help them, we could not get around the law, which says federal dollars in the disaster program can only go to restore property or cover property that is physically in a declared disaster area. We, SBA, or the federal government, does not declare other foreign areas as disaster areas. We can only declare our areas disaster areas. So unfortunately, that person could not get any assistance from SBA. So I just want to put that out there because it's important. If someone does have a boat or does have property, it may seem tempting to move it to a more protected area, and you should. But if that protected area is not in the United States, then you immediately lose eligibility for disaster assistance if there is damage to that piece of property. So I just want to give that example. Credit history, applicants must have a credit history acceptable to SBA. Now, our credit requirements are loosened significantly for disaster loans, but there are still some minimums. If you are in the 500s, if you get really below I think it was 570 or something like that, it's not possible to get a loan. You can have in the 600s and still get a loan, but you want to make sure that you have reasonable credit history. Certainly, if you've had an SBA loan in the past or any government loan and you defaulted and you did not pay that loan back, you will not be eligible to receive another loan. So if you received a loan during Maria or Irma and you did not pay it back or it was defaulted, then that's a problem. Same with COVID. If you received an EIDL loan during COVID or PPP or some other, and you just walked away from those and you did not pay them back or make any arrangements to pay them back, then when a disaster comes again, if you apply, you will be denied for that loan. So if you have an existing government loan that includes student loans, others, make sure you're paying them back. Make sure you're not going into default. That is very important. And then make sure that you pay your other debts as well and try to stay on top of your credit score to keep it at a reasonable level. You got to show the ability to repay all loans as well. So that really, especially for a business, that ties into your income, what you show for that business, what your profit is. You can't get a loan that is significantly more than what you make as a business. Same for you as an individual. You can't get a loan if your property is not valued high enough to cover that loan, or you don't make enough money to pay it back. You have to show the ability to repay your loans. If you're completely covered in debt and showing that you can't pay your current debts, it's going to be hard to get a SBA disaster loan. So to do this, you want to make sure you have some sort of proper accounting, profit loss statements, current ones for your business, uh, documentation of your gross receipts, your tax filings. You want to make sure you file your taxes. You make sure they're honest, correct, and on time. This is important because we rely on information that we get from the Bureau of Internal Revenue here in the Virgin Islands. Unfortunately, one thing I see often is individuals or small businesses will underreport their income to the territory's Internal Revenue Service in an attempt to avoid tax liability during the year. That is completely understandable. However, when it comes time for a disaster and you need a large loan to keep your business going, we will be looking at your tax returns from the Internal Revenue. If they show that you make a very small amount, then you're only going to get a small loan. So you need to make sure that your tax filing is honest, correct, and on time, because we rely specifically on the number you report to determine the size of the loan you are eligible to receive during a disaster. You want to maintain a good credit score. You want to forecast your income effectively, and you want to make sure you understand where the resources are, that you know where to go for those resources. Here are places I've covered already. The sba.gov/disaster site. We have a lot of good information on that site. We give information on our loan programs. We also provide links to some of the other pages and information sites I provided earlier, ready.gov, FEMA, a few others that give you a lot of good information on SBA's programs, as well as other programs that are out there to help. We have a customer service center, 800-659-2955. As I mentioned, that is staffed 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. I believe 6 days a week. I think it's on Saturday as well. Or you can email disaster customer service at sba.gov. Typically within 24 to 48 hours, you get a response to that disaster customer service at sba.gov. One recommendation I would give is, well, first I would recommend, if you can call, just call and speak to a live person. Sometimes you have to wait. It is worth the wait. If you need to talk to, if you want to also send an email, or you can't wait as long, or wait times are too long, or you're not getting the information you need, you can always email. My recommendation is to keep your email succinct and to the point. Sometimes people will send very long emails, and the needs of that person are lost in the email. It's hard for someone to ascertain what is needed and what is needed in a reply. When they're looking at hundreds of emails during the day, they typically don't have time to read through multiple pages of an email. So make sure your request is succinct and to the point, letting people know exactly what's going on, what your need is, and how they can help resolve that for you in that email. I also encourage you, if you are emailing this link from the territory, you can also copy me or copy another person, and I can't always follow up on every single one. But if you are having issues that end up where you need to contact me or some others, at least I'll have an email record of and have an understanding of what's going on with your file. Now, there are other resources that you should be taking advantage of, not only now at this preparation stage, but also at the recovery stage. Primarily is the SBDC. Of course, they're hosting here today, but they do specifically help individuals and business owners with their disaster recovery plan. So if you have trouble putting that together, finding the time, or understanding how to do that, just set an appointment with the SBDC. They will not charge you for this. They will help you put together that plan customized for your business, and put it together. They're not going to do all the work for you. They're going to sit down with you to help, but you should take advantage of what they're doing. All right, so let's see. All right, so that's it for my part of the presentation. At this point, we can open up the questions, and I can answer anything about SBA disaster, but also anything related to SBA. But it's open for questions now. And Sharika, I'm not sure if people can unmute themselves or put it in chat or what.
Hi, Wayne, they can do both.
Okay,
So just
great.
raise your hand and then we'll have you unmute your mic if you have a question. But thus far, we don't see any questions in the chat, Wayne.
Okay. We'll wait a few minutes and see if there are any questions.
Hi, Wayne. Can I add a little something from what I learned with the last disaster that might help somebody else?
Sure, go right ahead.
Well, there are a couple of things. You touched on the records. Not everybody embraces it, but cloud storage of some of your records and things, if they have been destroyed or damaged, are invaluable, because even if your computer and everything goes and is ruined, you can log back in, buy another one, get one, log in, and you can have access to the records. So I saw some of my people really struggled with that because they didn't have another mechanism. The other thing that we learned from one of my clients is to have their suppliers in more than one location. As it happened here, we had people that were impacted in the VI and they were in Puerto Rico and the whole area. So before you go into it, you should have relationships established with suppliers outside of the area so that you can get your products or whatever you need going forward and already have established credit with them or a relationship. And the third one came about from someone who had foresight. They went before the season and they took videos of the premises and a lot of different things. Again, they ended up storing it on the cloud. You could also have it on your phone, and a lot of that is saved even if you lost it. And it made it so much easier for them to try to reconstruct what some of the damages were. So you got a lot of really good comments and things in it, but those were, I'd say, 3 lessons that were learned from a lot of other business owners that I knew. So thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Amy. That's good points. Thanks for reinforcing that. And I think the idea about taking pictures and video of property is really, really a good one.
I don't see any additional questions in the chat, but we have Mary Jo with a question. Mary Jo, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, just to piggyback on what Amy said, taking pictures is a really good idea. As a matter of fact, that's what the, what do you call those insurance guys recommend for people to do for their homes also. So definitely want to look at doing that. And how do I unraise my hand? Oh, there we go. I didn't mean to clap for myself, but
And Mary Jo, since you're on, do you want to provide like just a short description of how SBDC helps businesses when they're preparing their disaster plan?
yeah, we actually have a template that we could share with folks so they could start putting together the pieces, and we can review them for them to make sure that they have all their I's dotted and their T's crossed. So they can call us to set an appointment, can send us an email, and I think we can email that document out to them so that they can have that to start to review.
Great, thank you.
Mary Jo, can you put your email or something in the chat to request that checklist?
No problem.
Thanks.
Sometimes have a challenge finding the right icon to click on, but I'll put that in the chat.
Okay, Wayne, well, I don't see any more questions, so I guess it's safe to say that the VISBDC has so much more in store for you as VI small businesses. You can visit our website at www.visbdc.org. Download the VISBDC app on your mobile device from the appropriate app store. Like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Google Business, and you can subscribe to the VISBDC YouTube channel for new uploads of our on-demand webinars. I'll just take the time to mention that this webinar will be converted into on-demand format. So you can go ahead to the VISBDC training portal and register to watch at your leisure. We do have a few upcoming events. We want to mention that on Tomorrow, we actually have payment processes for small businesses on St. Croix. We have Boomerang Eats coming in person at St. Croix to handle that workshop. On St. Thomas, we have VBAC, and they're presenting an introduction to business planning. On the 7th, we have financial basics, record keeping fundamentals for farmers and fishers. That's a hybrid event. It's going to be available in person on St. Croix and online if you're in the St. Thomas, St. Croix, St. Thomas, St. John district. And on the 12th, we have tax essentials for farmers and fishers. Fill in your Schedule F form. So that's another hybrid event that's going to be available in person on St. Croix and virtually if you're in the St. Thomas, St. John district. So I don't see any more questions. So on behalf of the entire VISBDC network, Wayne, thank you for collaborating with us and thank you for joining everyone in attendance with us. And we're wishing you a productive day.
All right. Thank you.
All righty. Bye, everyone.
Bye.